Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Oh, hi, good evening. My name is Deborah. I live in Brazil, and it is very good to be back here. I have been here before introducing the Venus Project, and at this point, the Venus Project activism volunteers and points of contact like me have already talked about the monetary system versus a resource-based economy, technology, human behavior, education, values. And today I'll be talking a little about communication. Before I start, I would like to make a disclaimer and say that whatever I say here today may not represent precisely the views of the Venus Project. So, I have a degree in social communications, which I found out a few years ago that my diploma is not worth that much if we are thinking of education in its essence. There were many good things about college. I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong about that, please. But I was never taught how communication really works, how to truly try to communicate with other people. I was never taught how our current communication system is limited or even how to improve it. Instead, I was taught the basics on how to understand the audience through history, philosophy, psychology, their political views, art, and sell them a product, an idea, a script, using semiotics theories, which is the purpose of communication in the monetary system anyway, to control human behavior. And to be fair with college, there is no science of communication. And we can communicate, but up to a certain extent with one another. And why is that? It is because communication can happen more effectively in common grounds. Once again, why is that? Because when we try to communicate, we are exposing our personal frame of reference. Our culture, our values, our experiences are all part of this frame of reference as well. And very often people cannot really relate to it. Can you imagine the conversation between an astrophysicist and a baker, for example? Can they equally talk about the Earth's magnetic field or the process of making good flour, for example? Our society is very complex at this day and age. Our multiplicity of reactions and different values cannot assure communication. And this is crucial if we are seeking problem solving. People may express their issues using the best of their abilities, but if the receiver cannot relate to their views, values, and culture, communication fails. In other words, we do communicate, but communication can be misunderstood. In order for us to communicate, first, we have to establish what communication is. As I mentioned before, communication is a reference of our own values. That means nobody can be completely impartial or neutral when they try to communicate something, because everybody is a victim of culture. So in essence, when we are trying to communicate something, we are also trying to control the other person's behavior. It sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But have you ever questioned yourself what you are doing when you state Citizen Kane is the best movie ever to a friend? Or when you ask, can you do me a favor? I'll be very honest with you. This is exactly what I'm trying to do here. I am trying to make you understand and think about communication from a different perspective, the perspective I am exposing. In a monetary system, it is hard to establish communication because money can be used as a tool of persuasion as well. Imagine you are miserable at your job and you want to take a different direction in life. You step into your boss's office and say, I want to quit. But you are his top salesman in the team, and he cannot let it happen, regardless of how you feel or what is best for you. He offers you a pay increase and a bigger commission, and you stay. Think of how many women have been seduced simply by the fact that a guy has a cool car, or by the fact that after a fight or being cheated on, a woman was given a present, such as flowers or a diamond ring, and it was enough to heal the pain, and she forgave him. Companies seduce politicians into legislating in their favor all the time. Money is used as a mechanism to affect human behavior, and communication is a means of maintaining a position of differential advantage. Most likely, people do not seek to communicate, but to maintain these conditions. The boss who controls you and keeps his figures, the guy who can get the girl because of his car, the cheater who can have both worlds, the company that can have the law on their side and then make ads saying how good they are because they are complying with regulations. These are all positions of differential advantage, and communication is motivated by vested interests. It's raining a lot here right now. I apologize if the noise is interfering with what I'm saying. But let's keep going. There are different types of communication: visual communication, nonviolent communication, verbal communication. And we communicate in many different levels: the way we dress, the way we look, the tone of our voices, our posture, gestures. Part of the process of communication has to do with language. When we are trying to communicate, we are also sharing a language. Language, as a group of grammar structures, rules, and vocabulary, formed historically, is organic. It has changed with history and culture. Think of Latin languages such as Italian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. These languages have the same root, Greek and Latin, but history has made them different. If it hadn't been for the expansion of the Roman Empire, these languages would be a whole different nowadays, or maybe they wouldn't even exist. Globalization also plays a good part in language. Many English words are part of other languages' vocabulary, just like English has incorporated foreign words in its vocabulary, such as sauna, that comes from Finland, coup d'etat, which is French, and the expression hasta la vista, which is Spanish. What I'm trying to explain is that language is organic. It is constantly changing, and in a way, it also has to do with the stage of technology we are in. The word selfie did not exist 5 years ago, for example. However, the structure of our language was designed hundreds of years ago. So language has evolved, and it is continuing to do so. Okay, but in which conditions? Through scarcity, superstition, and social insufficiency. Language is also full of ambiguities, uncertainties, and it is subject to interpretation as well. It happens due to culture and values, and it can also be emotionally driven too. All that makes it really hard for us to share an idea with accuracy. And in a way that all parts involved will understand the same thing the same way. How many meanings can make up have in English? How many meanings can the word get have in English? In the sentence, and I have that here for you. In the sentence, I saw a man on a hill with a telescope. It means there is a man on a hill and I'm watching him with a telescope, or it means that there is a man on a hill who I am seeing and he has a telescope. Or even, I am on a hill and I saw a man using a telescope. I don't know. I'll let you guys to decide. If we are talking about literature, ambiguities are... No, let me start again. If we are talking about literature, ambiguities and uncertainties can add a lot of flair to novels and poems. But if our goal is to tackle problems, if our goal is to resolve global issues together, improving communication becomes more than necessary. We need a language that is free of ambiguities, not subject to interpretation. In a way, this language already exists. It is technical. It is the language of science. For example, the blueprints to build a bridge or an aircraft are the same here in Brazil, in Japan, or in Canada. If we apply the same methods used in the physical sciences to social sciences and the humanities, we can resolve a lot of unnecessary conflicts. According to Alfred Korzybski, only in technical mathematics can people behave semantically like gentlemen. They analyze and agree. No quarrel are possible. Language and semantic research show that the structure of all languages can and must be made similar to empirical structures. And then also the rest of humans can and probably will behave in a less silly and futile way than they have done in the past or they are doing in the present. If we look back in history, we'll see that without a common descriptive language, most technical advances would not have been possible. As we are discussing the redesign of a whole culture based on our knowledge and resources, why not expand the same type of thinking on other areas that need development? A technical language would greatly help us state problems and propose solutions differently, more clearly, without a distortion of meaning or misunderstandings. Think of how many times you were in a delicate situation and you either asked yourself, what do you mean? Or you jumped into a conclusion too soon and found out later that you misunderstood what the other person actually meant. Also, keep in mind that if you are not talking specifics, you are not really communicating, because the receiver will understand what you're saying according to his or her frame of reference. Maybe you're asking yourself right now, what if questions are also broad? After all, if I'm asking, it is because I don't know much about the subject. If the message has to be specific, how about the questions? Well, broad questions can lead to all sorts of interpretation as well. Broad questions do not tell the receiver what needs to be answered. If you ask me, what's the weather like? That does not tell me what you want to know, honestly. In my mind, I'm thinking, where, when? And my answer would be something like, well, here in Brazil, it is usually very hot. In some areas, it can get very dry. In others, it can be very humid. Also, it can get quite cold in the south. But if you meant, what is the weather like in São Paulo today? I know what you want to know. And my answer is, well, it is rainy and warm. Why understanding this is important? Because we all want to participate. We all want to feel like we belong, that we are competent. If we want to be part of something, we should learn and be able to collaborate differently. And that starts by communicating more effectively. If people from different backgrounds cannot understand each other and it generates conflict, such as the right and left-wing political supporters or parties, socialists and capitalists, Jews and Muslims, understand that people are not bad. It only means that if we cannot understand each other, it only means that we are victims of a different culture. It means that there is no referential language for them or us to use in established communication. If you have followed these presentations every Wednesday, you already know that our behavior is shaped by the environment. That can give you a hand when communicating from now on, because it equips you to understand where the other person is coming from and take their person's culture and value into account. If you get mad at a person, it means that you also do not understand the subject. It means you don't have the background to understand the other person and vice versa. In a recent article for The Guardian, David Ritter, he is the CEO for Greenpeace Australia Pacific, he wrote, "Given that there is no status quo option, we need a fundamental debate over the shape and the purpose of a new economy. How do we achieve a new economy squarely in the service of society, not only geared towards ecological limits, but also oriented to fairness and justice?" Well, the first thing he points out in order to answer his own question is that we need a language that evokes a different set of values and priorities in the status quo. That also brings up that not only our language is inaccurate, ambiguous, uncertain, and subject to different interpretations, but also it reflects the values of this system. Expressions such as time is money, what does it evoke? It evokes the view of what time should mean to us. And it limits time to a piece of paper when life is about much more than money. Just like human capital. Have you thought of what human capital means? It evokes that we are nothing more than a commodity. We still can find built in the language sexism, racism, prejudice, discrimination. Do you remember I said in the beginning that our language has evolved through scarcity, superstition, and social insufficiency? Yeah. These are the values expressed in our language nowadays. So how can we communicate in the future? It is believed that in the future, people will learn not to reject people because of their values, views, and culture, but to reject these values, these views, this culture. If we are able to make this separation and develop a technical, mathematical, global language, we'll be able to focus on the message only, and it will avoid a lot of unnecessary conflicts and will resolve issues more easily, because communication is not limited. Because communication is not limited or an obstacle anymore. Anyway, to wrap things up, communication is a very broad subject. I could stay here going on and on and on about it. What I have spoken about today is a fraction of a much bigger topic. But that's it for this first moment. I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much for watching. I would also like to thank CCN for the opportunity to be here again. Next week, Stan will be here talking about the transition from a monetary system to a resource-based economy. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into CCN. This unique network is dedicated to free and independent media. CCN was created with the belief that information is the common heritage of all beings, which is why our live stream high-definition broadcast is easily accessible and free to view. If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Having produced over 1,000 shows in 2015, which are all archived on YouTube, we look forward to bringing you more groundbreaking, cutting-edge information in 2016. For more information on what is on, please check out our broadcast guide for weekly updates. CCN broadcasts in multiple languages and features some key voices of our challenging times who are all in pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world. CCN belongs to you, the people, and it is up to you all to keep this network on the air. Please contribute to the Network Support Fund or visit the CCN shop. We thank you all for supporting free and independent media.